Gunfire in churches, in stores, and on the streets in Texas. You've seen the stories about the deadly mass violence, and we've been telling you how state leaders have been looking for solutions. This week, the Texas Department of Public Safety released 2 new reports. They're giving lawmakers a detailed look at domestic terrorism and mass attacks in Texas. Wes Rappaport shows us how the results could affect the task force looking for ways to keep Texans safe.
One thing that was a catalyst for the creation of this organization was the horrific shooting and terrorism that took place in El Paso. But we all need to understand that terrorism evolves.
Governor Abbott says though this task force looks at domestic terrorism, those evolving threats could still be born overseas. Cybersecurity was a focal point of Tuesday's meeting, specifically watching the Middle East.
It's a public safety issue just as much as anything else. As we have our technology world, our systems are connected.
The Department of Public Safety briefed the task force on the state's domestic terrorism threat assessment and
the mass attacks threat to Texas.
In these reports, DPS says racially motivated attacks are the most violent types of domestic terrorism in the state, and firearms are the primary weapons. The agency says the lack of chargeable federal or state domestic terrorism statute makes it difficult for law enforcement to investigate, prosecute, and track overall domestic terrorism trends.
One of the focal points of this organization is to come up with a proposed statute that we would be looking to pass this next session that would, for one, define what domestic terrorism is.
Abbott says Lubbock County's district attorney analyzed the domestic terrorism statutes in all 50 states.
So we want to create a statute that will give prosecutors the tools to prosecute those who are plotting to commit domestic terrorism before the acts of violence occur.
This task force is slated to meet at least once every quarter. At the Capitol, I'm Wes Rappaport. Back to you.
The meeting at the Capitol focused on domestic terrorism, but as we showed you earlier, the governor also ended up taking questions about threats posed from Iran. For perspective on all this, we turn to our roundtable. Allie Morris covers politics for the Houston Chronicle, and Bob Garrett is the Austin bureau chief for the Dallas Morning News. Welcome.
Thanks.
Thanks for having me.
So the governor said Iran is launching as many as 10,000 cyber attempts every minute in Texas. And that seems like a lot, but the state already faces billions of probes each day. How serious is this threat, Bob?
That's really hard to say, Josh. I mean, the internet was full of people that know a lot more about this than I, who said that these were port scans. The Department of Information Resources that Abbott was relying on said it was reconnaissance scanning. At any rate, they believe it did pick up after the assassination of the Iranian general, and there was, of course, a brief defacing of the Texas Department of Agriculture's website.
Yeah, and that's a state site, but the governor also had some warnings for local governments and their sites.
Yeah, he warned local governments to be extra vigilant. We've seen in recent months that there have been some attacks known as ransomware attacks where, you know, cyber actors come in and can shut down networks and then demand a high ransom, and that befell some local governments in Texas recently. And so Governor Abbott was definitely warning for vigilance in the upcoming weeks.
Now, despite the cyber attacks and Iran, the real focus of the hearing was domestic terrorism and mass violence. What did lawmakers learn from the reports that came out?
Well, the Department of Public Safety had 2 reports, and they both were echoing one thing, which is that the single most active category of domestic terrorism is racially motivated attacks. So that was interesting, and mostly it's white against people of color, although there was, of course, the Dallas police shooting a few years ago that was black racially motivated violence. So they have a lot of acronyms in these reports. That was, I think, BRVM.
Yeah, and specifically related to the racism issue, they talked about the El Paso shooter as well.
Yeah, definitely. Part of the attack, or part of the report rather, had a timeline that showed kind of a progression of attacks in Texas. And within the last 2 years, obviously, there's been a large increase. The report also noted that guns were commonly used in these attacks, though they warned about knives and potentially explosives.
Part of the report, and you mentioned this in your writing, was about incels. What are they talking about there?
Involuntary celibates. That there's a group of men, young men that are unable to have intimate relations with women, and that they on the internet network with each other and feed into sort of radical ideologies, not only racist but now eco-fascist. In other words, they tie a concern for the future of the globe and the ecosystem to a fear of people of color, basically. And anyway, we had a shooter in Dallas who attacked the federal courthouse, didn't kill anybody. He got killed. It was in some way, people termed it attempted suicide by himself. But he had some incel likes of incel statements on the web.
Mm-hmm. Could these reports have any effect on the recommendations that are going to come out of this committee?
Yeah, the governor and members of the committee apparently talked during the roundtable, which was closed door, about whether or not the state should adopt some laws that specifically would criminalize domestic terror acts in the state. And so I think we'll see if those get picked up, moving forward, if that's something that lawmakers would like to pursue.
That was an interesting thing, because the report noted that we don't have either at the federal or state level a specific offense, domestic terror, and so they have to use other types of existing criminal offenses. So that one could be coming up next session.
Yep, and certainly they're going to continue meeting, and we've got a while until the next session, so we'll see what more comes out of this.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, thank you both.
Thank you.
Thanks.